Hey guys, it's been a long winter, but we're back, and I figured we'd have a little bit of a chat. Here's a little peek at my current growing setup. Got some onions that have been going for quite some time. And past this, we have a tray of flowers and things. There's some peppers down there, which we're going to talk about later. And more onions. And I thought we would just take these onions out into the greenhouse today and have a bit of a chat about spring. As you can see, we've still got quite a bit of snow. There's a chickadee up on that. I'm not sure if you can see that, but still have quite a lot of snow, and it's just beginning to melt. So there's some nice muddy bits here and there. It's nice and warm in here. It's reading 35 right now, and the door's been open for a little bit. Got some buckets of snow melting to get me some water. I don't have water piped in here yet, and we don't want to turn on the hose and have hoses running with as cold as it's getting at night. But we do have this section here ready to get some plants in it. This heater that we've got here is just running off of an extension cord hooked up to a temperature's not the right word, thermostat is the right word. And it is keeping at 12 degrees Celsius. And last night it was -8 outside, and under the covers here it was hovering very nicely between 11 and 13 degrees. So this is about the right amount of space for that heater to heat, and I don't want to have to heat up the whole greenhouse because I don't have the energy for it, like the power. Would need a much bigger unit and a much stronger electricity source to heat the whole greenhouse right now. So we're just keeping an area frost-free so that I can begin bringing some plants out here. I'm not going to bring out the tender stuff yet, but the onions and lettuce are usually pretty tolerant of frosts, and so they're going to come in here. So this soil here is actually really nice and warm, but it's also really rather dry. Got put in here pretty dry, so there's not a lot of moisture in it. And it's a bit clumpy because this is a mixture of manure and compost, and it's there's bits of eggshell and stuff in it, so it's not the most fine possible soil, but it will be good once it's rehydrated properly. So I'm just gonna pour some water in here. Now these beds are made of lumber, but we have lined the sides with 6mm poly just to keep the wood from staying too wet and decomposing. And so that's what the deal is. Now, what's happening here is kind of what I expected to happen. You have some bits that are really, really soggy and some bits that are actually resisting the water, which is something called hydrophobic. And when the soil is hydrophobic, basically the surface tension of the water is greater than the soil's ability to absorb it. You can water with just a tiny little bit of soap in the water, and that helps break the surface tension and allows the soil to begin to absorb. That does work, and in emergencies I will sometimes do that. But usually what I do instead is just to give it an opportunity to soak. If you let it soak in enough water for long enough, it will rehydrate, and then it will no longer be hydrophobic. So these are my giant onions. I could just put them out here in this tray, but to be honest, these trays are not nearly big enough And even inside in the window, they were getting warm enough during the day that they were almost dried out by the end of a single day. And so I can't just leave them in this tray or they will fry out here because it's quite warm in here. Right now it's 35. It'll probably heat up to 40 when the sun is really at its height in the day. And that's pretty warm for these guys. Now, this plastic cover is going to come back over top of them, which will shield them somewhat from the intensity of the sun. So that should be a similar amount of light to what they were receiving inside. And I don't expect any burning for that reason. But as the season goes on, I will want to actually move these out into the garden because I don't think they'll enjoy being in this tropical environment through the summer. And also I want to save this space for plants that will really thrive in this environment. So they're going to get transplanted into this, but then they will get transplanted into the garden later on. That's my plan. That's my theory. And the lettuces, on the other hand, the lettuces are not going to be planted into the garden. They're not going to be the summer lettuce. They are just going to be the lettuce for the next 2 months while we wait for the summer garden to actually get going. So I'm just going to get started. These have actually done quite well. They're certainly not root bound. That soil is not very damp. Yeah, so that's the plan here, and we'll see. I'm a little concerned about the lettuce, just because of how hot it does get in here, that it'll bolt. So I'm thinking of doing a bit of an experiment. We're going to put half of the lettuce on one end, just covered with the plastic, and then we're going to put half of the lettuce on the other end of this tunnel, and we're going to cover that section with a little bit of the corner of the shade cloth to see if that does better. And like most of my experiments, success or failure here is not super concerning. There'll be lots of lettuce. I'll be able to harvest some right away, even if it does get leggy or even if it does bolt. And it's just really an opportunity to figure out what works in the greenhouse. So with how how dry this soil is, I really should be waiting. I should be letting this sit for a couple of hours at least, and then coming back. Some of these little onions are just not very big. But we'll plant them. Give them a chance. This little guy's got such minimal roots here. Just gonna plant these little guys beside each other. Keep each other company. All right. First season in the greenhouse, there's lots of experiments that we are going to probably be conducting. And I am looking forward to it. So I haven't been doing any seed starting videos, partly because last year I did so many that it was becoming a drain on me. And I felt like I just about couldn't do anything without filming it, and that was, it was just exhausting. And this spring has been a difficult one for me. I'm not sure how you guys are doing, but some winters are just harder than others. And it's easy to let things just slide. And I've been letting things slide. So I haven't started nearly as many things as I expected to. I will still be starting more things, and it's not going to be the end of the world. Some of them just aren't going to be as far ahead as they would be if I had started them when I should have. But they will still grow, and there will still be a garden. And that's good enough for me. So one of the things I was thinking about this year is I've got quite a few varieties of, just gonna let this sit. All right, I'll let that sit and soak in for a bit. Just gonna, should prepare prepare some ground for these lettuces. I'm going to pull this probe out of the way, move that out of the way, and I'm just going to create a little well here so that the water can sit here before it, so it can be absorbed instead of just running off down the sides of the bed. Definitely need some more water. All right. So I've got something in my head, and this is going to be exciting for you if you're local. If you're not local, this might be a little disappointing, I'm not sure. But basically, I'm thinking of doing a bit of an open house, an open greenhouse, I should say, this spring. I've been talking about wanting to set up a seed swap, and honestly, I am not prepared or equipped to set up a big event like that right now, and I don't even know where I'd begin. And I also feel like the first time you do any of these things, you're kind of need to run with the expectation that you'll have to provide enough for it to succeed, and not to necessarily expect others to be, how do I explain this? You know, a seed swap or a plant swap, maybe other people will show up or whatever, but if they don't, you need to have provided enough to make it worth someone's time to show up. And so I've been struggling with this concept of how do I get this thing started? How do I get it going? What do I need to do? And just trying to squeeze as many of these onions in here as I can. Now, these pots are just, they're not my favorite. I'll just tell you that. So they don't dish them out nicely. But if you've heard that onions have very pitiful roots and that they can't handle being transplanted, that isn't true. I am not at all gentle with these, and they have already been transplanted at least once into this tray, which they survived that too, so they'll be fine. Okay, what were we talking about? Seed swaps. Okay. Instead of doing a big seed swap in a rented building and trying to figure out the logistics of that, I'm going to instead have a open house, and I'm going to have the seeds that can be direct sown. I'm going to, because I've got a bunch saved up to share, and so I'll be offering those for anybody who wants them, and it'll be just a bit of an open house. I'll also be starting a bunch of tomatoes and peppers in various varieties that the greenhouses locally don't usually carry, and so I'll be selling some extra plants as well, and it'll hopefully will just be a fun day of having gardeners stop in and check out the greenhouse and have a bit of a chat and talk shop. Maybe have a pot of coffee going and some tea, and it'll just be an opportunity to share some seeds and some plants and some hopes and dreams. And I'm kind of excited and a little bit scared, but if you're local, I would love to hear from you in the comments. what you think of this plan, and let me know if you'd be interested in showing up. But I think that's all I've got to say for this video right now, so I'm just going to sign off here, and I'll probably be filming another video that'll pop up either today or tomorrow, but for now, we'll see ya.